It's one of those days called Sunday. That's right. Every Saturday, Sunday, we are live here on Make a Right, on the Right Mindset. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and today we are going to be doing the Write a Book with Me from Concept to Conception. We're on episode 27. I can't believe it. We are flying through this series, and I don't know if you're as excited as I am, but I will say this. We're in the groove. We are in the groove. We are on chapter 7.2. So we are almost done with Act 1. And when I say done with, what am I talking about? I'm talking about we are on the zero draft of chapter 7, which means we are flying through Act 1. That's all I'm saying. Because if there's 9 plot points, and our goal is to do like 1 chapter per plot point. However, we've already fallen into the doubling up on chapter 7. We are on 7.2 right now. So this is pretty exciting. We're going to get right into it as soon as a few people get in. But if this is your first time coming to this channel, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Every Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we do the live thing where every Saturday is more educational, sometimes business, but mostly educational on writing, craft specifically. And every Sunday, we do a live Write With Me where we show behind the scenes. Hey, Rain, finally caught you live. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you finally made it, and I'm excited to have you here. Let's see how it goes. Feel free to ask questions while I'm in the process. What's up, flowers? Yes, if you haven't been to the live and you're watching this on a replay, remember on the live you could ask questions in real time. You could either ask questions on what I'm doing, you could ask questions about your writing, you could whatever you want. I'm a developmental editor and a writing teacher, so it's like getting free advice. The only thing I suggest is maybe buy someone a slice of pizza in honor of the assistants. Also, I got a poll within the comment section. What's your biggest writing struggle? Usually at the end of the hour, we talk about the poll and we give some little advice. Sure will. That's what I love. If we're going to sing, that's the way to make this happen. You got to sing when you're enjoying it. But let's get right into it. We got some people. Everyone, thank you so much for coming and showing up. The live is always more fun when you're here to celebrate it with. Where are we? We are on 7.2. So last episode, just a quick follow-up. We had to split chapter 7 into a second chapter. The first part of the 7.2 is her running across the top of the buildings. Then she gets into the building, and then there's a bang on the door. It's the authorities. So the boss is like, "Hey, go work on one of the ships." All right, so that's where we're at right now. Let's get into it. Now, remember, I am doing a zero draft. For anyone who doesn't know, this is not prose. There's very little, if zero. No pun intended for zero draft. Zero immersion. It's just me beating out the scenes. It's me allowing the flow. That's why I use the dots. As you can see, even up here, like this introduces the beat, what's happening, and then I go a little deeper into it. And then this means that I'm going to switch the beat to the next keeps the narrative moving. And as you can see, this has a pretty quick pace to it. Because of the beatage, right? The way I kind of flow it out. This one sits in this one a little bit more, building on the tension, and then the tension drops, and we move along. Now, as you can see, this one sets up, the boss comes downstairs, still in his sleeping clothes. Then we sort of get a little deeper, right? So this is a slower paced scene, and I could tell because before we get to the next major beat movement, we're still playing in it. So I use the dots, the bullet points, to help me measure the movement of a scene, of a beat within the scene, and ultimately what that tells me is, am I lingering too much? Now, that doesn't mean when I'm writing the prose that these aren't longer prose. It doesn't mean whatever the case is. It just means on foundational level, am I staying in this beat too long, or am I flying through it? And that's an issue too. You don't want to always fly through stuff. I'm currently zero drafting my second romance book, and these videos have. Oh man, Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that these are helping. But more importantly, everyone give a big congratulations to Rain over here about successfully on a zero draft of the second romance novel. That's pretty amazing, man. Congratulations on that. That's an accomplishment. Just keep it going. I know you can do it. All right, let's do this. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each beat and I'm going to see if I can kind of go into them. I'm going to build on them, all right? So Laura is now again, as you can read it, Laura is wearing welding equipment. That's not a prose. That's not anything. It's just it's a broad general statement because that's what outlining is about. Broad general statements. Now you can get specific on certain things. For example, Laura Olivia's name is specific, right? You get specific on what is happening, but you don't have to get specific with the greater details because you can dive into those through the later stages. You could dive into them through the immersion draft. You could, whatever the case is. So you don't have to give yourself too much pressure when outlining. All right. Laura is wearing... All right. This we got to... And working on one of the ships. It's loud. And her welding. Welding? Shooting spacks all over the place. I don't know about you, but I like to talk when I write. All right. Now, technically, what I would do is I would do this, right? But because, boop, oh look, AI. All right. So this is all one beat that sets up the shot. Now, again, I have a screenwriting background for film and television, many years in the industry. So I like to look at things in shots, like the camera shot. So this is the setup shot. This might be a master or an establishing shot where I'm setting up the scene where it's going to be. I'm going to describe Laura working on the ship and what it would look like in the ship. So that creates the atmosphere. Okay. Okay. Now. All right. Authorities. Come into the back area with the boss. It's even louder. And Laura can't hear them calling up to her, though she sees them and ignores them. Okay. So, for anyone who doesn't know, I like to give myself little notes in the red, in little brackets. Parentheticals. Okay, parentheticals. And the reason I do that is just it's something to keep note of for myself, especially because the motivation is there, right? So the authorities come into the back area with the boss. It's even louder because remember, this is going to be in first person POV for Laura Olivia, so we really wouldn't be in their heads. So Laura can't hear them calling up to her, though she sees them. So when I'm writing this, I have to make sure that she is noticing them, and then that's the reason. In fact, I'll write that just so it's very clear, right? This is the reason she makes the welding louder. All right, so that just creates a cause and effect, and we make sense, and I know that. We might not have to necessarily explain that in the text, per se. Like we don't have to sit there, I'm going to ignore them, so I'm going to make the welding louder. She makes the weld. No, I would make notice that she recognizes them, and because she recognizes them, she starts welding more, and it gets louder, right? So I like to write through behavior, even though it's first person. You still got to get some behavior in there, right? Though some might say, but Thomas, you're inside her head the whole time. Yeah, but... Oh, what's up, Greetings, Thomas, and everyone else. Compassion and blessings on all. You know the drill, working but listening. Will chime in as I can if I have any useful or useless or useful comments and questions. Hey, here on The Right Mindset, all questions are useful. There is no such thing as a useless question. However, it may not be prudent, but that doesn't mean we can't learn from it. even quote unquote dumb questions, we can learn something. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. All right. Okay, authorities bang on a barrel with a metal stick. Their authority wand. I guess we'll just say that. We'll figure that wand. Okay. O-W-A. Wand, like on. Okay. All right. Remember, great writing is rewriting, and great writers all have great editors. All right. Okay. Yelling up at her to stop. Might be a funny. What? All right. Laura lifts her helmet, and her face is covered with soot. All right. All right. I'm gonna actually do something here. All right. From the area around her and wiping it on her face and neck. Oh, I should say. All right, outfit, and then runs up the ship, getting in place. She rubbed some soot from the area around her and wiped it, and on her face and neck. All right, now we get into it. So actually, now this officially turns into welding outfit. All right, Laura Olivia runs up the ship, getting in place. She all right, let me make this wearing her welding equipment and masks and works. All right, so why did I do that? What is the thinking I did here? As soon as I wrote soot, I was like, wait a minute, she just came in, so she really wouldn't be super messy. So now I have an opportunity to not only see the soot reveal, but also show character, intellect, and she's thinking ahead, right? So Laura throws on her welding outfit, struggling to get in it fast, knowing people are coming into this room. Okay, so that creates urgency and some tension, right? And then now the beat gets to expand a little bit. Olivia runs up the ship, getting in place. And she rubs. I could just say. Oh, now because it's a new action and rubbed. Okay. So now she's like, oh, I'm going to show that I've been here for a little bit. So this creates character, right? This would be considered character development. And that's the thing. When you're writing the outline, if you have opportunities to show through behavior a character and who they are, you're in a good position. Now, a lot of times, as a developmental editor, one thing that I often run into is I'll get to a chapter where a character is doing a very specific behavior, and then I'll always ask the same question. I go, what's the purpose of this chapter? And they usually say, well, I want to show like how smart someone is, or how kind somebody is, or how blank, or how good they are at fighting. And, or, like I'm showcasing their talent. And I usually say the same thing over and over. They aren't this thing once, they are all the time the thing. So if you discover behavior like I just did here, even though I feel she's done this a couple times in the earlier chapters, you have to say to yourself, where can I go back and how can I move forward showing that behavior? Because when you're writing, a character is who they are. They evolve, they devolve, whatever the case may be, but their behavior should be shown consistently through the chapters. What does that mean, that every single chapter I have to show her being clever like this? Does that mean if someone's really good at fighting, every single chapter I have to show them fighting? No. It just means that you have to build and seed on the concept of whatever they're qualified for. For example, if they are a good fighter and they're a master of specifically the bastard sword or long form fighting, maybe their dialogue, conversation, positions in a room, the way they hold themselves, these things create the behavior of seeding that knowledge. You don't always have to come out and be like, I am good at the long sword, right? But maybe they have a long sword at their side, and maybe they're always like fidgeting with the hilt, or maybe they're they clean their sword when they're on a break. Maybe they're sharpening their sword when they're on a break. You know, like if they're camping or if they're in a tavern, whatever the case may be. Another thing is like maybe they use terminology that would be associated with somebody who's been engulfed in that kind of world, that environment. Same thing with someone being a doctor. When you go out to dinner with someone, you don't know they're a doctor, but they might be knowledgeable on something. They might order certain foods because they're a doctor. For example, they'll get a water with ice and lemon in it, and they might say, you know what, can I actually just get a water, no ice, no lemon? And then the person's like, why? It's like, ugh, you don't know what's like. They're pre-cut lemons. You know, you don't know how long they've been out for. You don't know if they fell on the floor. How often do you know if they washed it? Of course, they have to wash it. You know, and they go into it and they go, you know what kind of germs and diseases are on those lemons? And then they're like, but what about the ice cube machine? Well, how often have you ever worked at a company with an ice cube machine and they made you take all the ice cubes out and clean it? And then now you're creating behavior, though, because of that knowledge that they are a doctor, but we don't know it yet that they're a doctor, but you as the writer know they're a doctor, so that's something to keep in mind. Past behavior predicts future. Oh, that is such a... Yes, 100%. Excellent. Excellent insight, my friend. Excellent insight. All right, let's keep it going. Do. Wearing her welding equipment. Okay. Okay. She worked on. Let's just say on the ship. It's loud and her welding is shooting sparks all over the place. All right, so that'll keep. Anyway. Authorities come into the back area. Hey, the Ori is banging on the thing. Bing, 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 yelling up, yo! Lifts her helmet and her face is covered. All right. I had no idea they were there. Or I should say, the goal is to try to say the name, to write the name as much as possible, just so you get used to it. Laura Olivia. I am watching Lilo and Stitch just to see if I could use it as my 10th book for my sleep. Hey, look, as long as Lilo doesn't get Stitch, because snitches get stitches, we're good. All right. And also, it's always good to watch Lilo and Stitch. The original made me, it makes you a little cry. You're like, oh, this is it. All right. Laura lifts her helmet, and her face is covered with soot. She shuts off the welder, acting as if she had no idea they were there. All right, okay. So now this is where we get into the interesting elements of zero drafting. I could write out a full conversation. I could do that. But when I'm doing this, I have to really feel the dialogue, right? So in this situation, I know the dialogue is going to be dismissive. It's going to be her obviously making some excuse that she was here the whole time, and the authorities might be like, no, we saw you running in. We saw someone running into this building, and they'd be like, I don't know, I didn't see anyone. And the boss would be like, hey, I've been here the whole time. Look, I'm in my PJs. We live here. We're not breaking curfew. This is our domicile. All right. I could do that, and I could get into that, but that's a very basic conversation. So when I'm working on a zero draft, if I don't want to go too deep into because The dialogue is all part of scene building, and that's something I do in the immersion, the first draft, right? I allow the first draft to kind of lean there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort of like generalize things, as we always talk about, right? So she answers their questions from high above the ship, right? And this is where we get into it. They accuse her of being outside, and her argument is that she's been working all night. They push back, saying that it's past curfew. Boss says they both live at the shop. Okay. All right. Okay. The authorities start looking around the area while the main person continues questioning Laura and the boss, which makes this a boop boop. All right. The main person asks who they said no one ran in, and they've been here all day and night, but they're welcome to look around. Okay. I spend most of the time laughing at your comments as you are writing. Oh. You should hear me when I'm not live. I'm just randomly I'm questioning, like, why are they doing this? Like, who dares to enter this room? And you're like, I have commentary on my characters alone as well. All right. Because I'm trying to, get there in my head. I'm trying to find the emotion of it, All right. Open up cabinets and other items to look inside. All right. The main person asks the boss about anyone coming around for parts, a new ship, etc. The boss says that no one has come around, other than the ships you see in the shop. All right. That's even more amusing to consider since there's no audience, but you're saying, well, I mean, there is an audience. It's me and my characters, You got to remember, you got to see my characters made me do it. That's why I designed this cup. And this little guy, hey, my name is Little. His name is, what is it? Inkwell. What is it? Quill Inkwell or something like that? Inkwell? I don't know. Mr. Inkwell? I made a stupid name for him. Anyway, all right. The boss says that no one has come around here, blah, blah, blah. All right. Laura says she needs to get this done before bedtime. Is there anything else? The main person says that they need to look out for trouble. There was an incident not too far from the city. Thus, the curfew. All right. Excellent. You is it? Is it? Yes. Does the mug talk to you? That's what I'm saying. The main person says that they need to look out for trouble. There was an incident. Okay. And by the way, thank you, Flowers, for the support and getting such a lovely cup. You have to talk to the mug. I mean, it's acceptable, All right. The authorities reluctantly leave. All right. Okay. Laura lowers her helmet and wails again. Laura stops, lifting her helmet. Oh, wait, stops and lifts her helmet. Okay. I can't spell. Spelling is without you. All right. Telling her boss that was close and that she really needs to get out of here. All right, here we go. That is chapter 7.2. For anyone who's just jumping in, the reason it's 7.2 is because the goal of this exercise and this experiment with Write a Book with Me is I'm using the 27 plot point outline, which I have multiple videos on how to use the 27 plot point outline, and we're trying to do a chapter per plot point. However, we do not restrict ourselves. So in the case of chapter 7, going through the zero draft, I realized I needed to split it up and make 2 chapters out of it. And that's a good lesson to understand is while you're doing your zero draft, you're going to start seeing the flow or the beats and the movement. That's why I use the dots, or why I use the bullet points, and we'll see the natural movement of it. Now, looking at this right now, you know, this is what, 370 words. So then we go to this, and I write that in 370 words, right? So this gives me, I don't know if you could, I'll blow it up a little bit bigger if you can't see it. So I keep track of my numbers, and maybe, can you see my little arrow here? So if you look at this area right here, this chapter right now as a zero draft is 928 words. So just off the top of my head, I know it's going to be at least double that once I get the prose in, if not time and a half. So as you can see, $21.99 is my guesstimate, and I have a formula in here which automatically sets it up. And how it does that is it takes the zero draft numbers and it multiplies it times 137%. So basically, I know it's going to be times plus 37, right? And I know that this chapter is probably going to be around 2,100 words. And that gives me an idea of the length of the chapters. Now, the original chapter was up here. So this is 2128 and 20. So I know 4,300 words for a chapter. Now, why did I break that up? Because in sci-fi, you can have a 100 word chapter, even a 5,000 word chapter. That's not a big deal. But the reason I broke it up is for pace. Now hear me out. The first chapter 7.1, it establishes her basically her needs. So she's like working and she's like, I got to go check out the ship and I got to get there before curfew comes. She gets to the ship. She learns that the authorities have found the ship and they're surrounding the ship, and now they are definitely looking for everyone. So then she's like, I got to get back before curfew is gone or starts. And chapter 7.2 is now that point. So it starts off with her moving through the city, trying to avoid the authorities. It gets to her getting down and into the shop and the authorities noticing her. And then we conclude with a resolution that the authorities actually enter and they think that somebody came into this place. Okay, so if I had that all as one chapter, the reason the pacing would be poor is because it's far too much information for the reader to have to take in. So now I broke it up, and now the reader gets to take in basically the setup of it all, which is what she's doing, and then she goes to the ship, and oh look, the authorities found the ship. Now the chapter's over, and the reader can choose to stop reading right there and be like, all right, what just happened? Let me take that in, right? That's what controlling the pace is about, is allowing readers to process, right? So with that beat, that breath, they can either choose to continue or they can take a minute, but either case, they have a chance to process. And now they get to read the second half of that, which is chapter 7.2. And now they get to explore basically the next step of that, bringing a resolution. So that's why I chose to break up chapter 7. And that is the help of the zero draft in my mind. When I'm doing it, I'm looking for those things. I'm looking for how much is in one chapter. Now, here's the crazy part. You ready? This is the crazy part. While I am writing the prose in my first draft, I might realize that the chapter is now getting too long for its britches within the prose themselves, and I am allowed to now break up the chapter again and create another chapter. And you're allowed to do that too. When people outline, I know that some of my clients get nervous with the outline because they're like, I have it, and like, can I break it? You're allowed to take stuff apart, throw stuff out, rearrange it. You're allowed to do whatever you want. I usually say allow the narrative to move the story, right? Now, of course, we talk about how narrative is both made of plot and story. Plot is what needs to happen no matter what, and story is how it unfolds through the emotional choices and experiences of the characters. Now, with that said, what I'm saying is the narrative should be allowed to move through the story. Where the story, the characters take you, let it go there. Move with that flow. Because as long as the outline is true to the plot, which is what needs to happen, and the zero draft is true to the plot, right, and you understand the foundation is there, you're allowed to expand those moments through character and development because you know that the plot is moving, okay? Now, there will be a point where, like, maybe there's too much story because you're just meandering in, like, characters, and that is an issue, too, and that comes down to, like, really fluff and building up your chapters by the word counts. And that's something to pay attention to. That's why I keep track of my word count. Now, I will say this. If your characters are moving around the plot and we're getting to see behavior, responses, consequences, emotions, choices, etc., but they are relative to the plot, world building, and character development, you're in a safe zone. It's when they start dealing with things that don't necessarily connect to those elements. If it's just meandering, like, for example, let's just use an epic fantasy and characters are in a tavern. Okay, tavern. All right. And they are discussing, that the prince just recently passed away. The young prince, by the way. They were maybe 12 or 13, okay? And they're talking about how it might influence the city, and that it's going to change how the king and queen, or whatever, the vuvu, the vava, right? You could change the names of, like, leadership. They don't always have to be kings and queens. They could be vuvus and vavas and baboos, right? I have the Vruel. The Vruel is like basically like an emperor. But anyway, so they're discussing that. They're talking about the plot, which is like the city changing and the prince being, whatever. And, should they stay or should they go? All right. Now, this is where it becomes a meander. All right. All the characters are talking about how their lives will be impacted by that. And then one character just randomly starts talking about their uncle, who just happened to be like a hero of the Lance 20 years ago. And, they died in that war, and they were thinking of actually going to visit their uncle, not their uncle's grave, because to see how their aunt is, who was married into it, and that marriage, it's an interesting story because ultimately they weren't supposed to get married. They come from two different clans, and that was a big to do. But my grandfather, their father, none of that has to do with the movement of the narrative. Nothing has to do with the movement of the characters. It is literally taking a moment and stealing it. And that's something to be very conscious of when characters try to steal the moments and it becomes about them and like this other world. Now, that doesn't mean you can't mention the uncle. It doesn't mean you can't say that they are thinking about going off to visit their uncle. But it's about sitting in that moment and then taking the conversation that's of importance and just turning it to this. And now it's all about this character, their uncle, the history of that uncle, the marriage, the death, the war. And that becomes meandering. That becomes fluff. And it's not doing anything. You're taking away from the movement. So those are things you can look for. I do a lot of editing sometimes because I forget something or have used bad grammar. Well, I mean, you're definitely going to have to edit. That's the rule of thumb. And also, great writing is great. Is great. Great writing is rewriting. Talking first. The first Italian has just won Wimbledon. Yeah, woo! That's magnificent. Bravo, bravo. All right, that's pretty cool. Italianos. House Italian. Sometimes because it just doesn't sound good. Well, that's true. But I would say this, Row. This is what I would say. When you're editing, wait until the later drafts. Don't worry about deep editing in your first, second, third, or fourth draft, because then you'll just never get to the draft that needs the editing. And the reason I say that is because you're going to constantly be rewriting and reworking over the course of several drafts, especially if you haven't gotten beta reader feedback, you haven't done a read through just to get notes about foundation, functionality, character, etc., right? So if you're editing before all that is taken care of and all the rewrites are done, you're just basically you're paving with like salt. You're paving roads with salt on a windy day while it's raining, because it's all going to go away in the sense that like it's not important. So be careful with the editing and grammar, and like don't worry about that crap. That stuff is something you worry about once you are basically in a position to say, you know what, I'm where this needs to be. Now I did the alpha readers, I did the beta readers, I did the notes, I did a big read through, I did everything I need to do. I am now up to line entering, and that's really where you do it. When I write something I know I'm not happy with, I change the font color to read so I spot. That's a really great move. That is actually a pro tip. That is something that pros do. We also, the other thing that I would add to that is you come up with like a keyword. So for me, it might be like I'll write, I write bloop. I do write bloop means to work on. Bleep means to make sure it makes sense. So when I have my, that is true. When I go through my files, I do Control F and I look for bloop or bleep, and it takes me right to the section. But the coloring is absolutely a pro tool. I recommend that for anyone who is definitely editing, because it keeps you moving and you know you have to go back to it. So that's very good. Generally speaking, musically and lyrically speaking as well. Well, that's excelente. To red, you got to do the red. All right, let's keep it going. All right. Oh, we finished chapter 7.2. So let's all right. So I think we added the numbers for this, right? So yeah, we did that one. I think we did this one. We definitely did that one. 38. All right. And then this 231. All right. Okay, so 7.2. So now we get to move on to 8. Let's do it. We got time? Yeah, we got time. All right, let's do this. By the way, any questions about what I'm doing, how I did it, why I'm doing it? If you have questions about the 27 plot point outline, if you have questions about anything, feel free to ask. I know I go off on tangents sometimes, and all right. Okay, so chapter 8, just for anyone who's listening. If we are trying to make every chapter a plot point, this would be considered plot point 8, which will be the first plot twist or pinch that happens. A plot twist usually reveals new information or reframes their understanding of something. A pinch reminds the character and the reader of the urgency and issue of the problem created in the inciting incident, or directly related to the inciting incident, and therefore creates more urgency. Okay, so in this situation, what's going to happen is the a customer is going to come in. They're going to realize that Laura is an alien from planet. We don't have a name for her. I just keep calling it Planet X right now. She's from another planet, a planet that this planet had a war with. So there's a little animosity. So then they get the authorities to come back. And when they come in, it causes her to run. So that becomes a pinch. Not a twist, but a pinch. And the reason it's a pinch is because it is reminding the character of their urgency and their situation. They are a fish out of water. They are put into a situation or circumstances where they are considered illegal because they, apparently were a part of a heist, but they weren't. The gang members who are from the heist, from the other planet, hijacked her and her ship, and forced her to get them out of the air, and the ship crashed onto this planet. And they can't find the gang leader, but they have the name of the pilot who has the ship, and everything looked like that she was involved in it as well. Okay, so that becomes a twist. I mean, a pinch. A pinch. All right, so let's get this here, and then we're gonna kind of build on that. All right. We're also going to do this. We're going to create the hard chapter break just so it's there. Boop. All right. And we don't need this here. Boop. Okay. Now, you might be looking at this and go, Thomas, you're... by the way, these are notes from the extended draft. If you don't know, real quick, if you don't know what that is, I do a short form outline, which is really quick stuff. It's just like broad general statements, summaries, a quick line here, whatever. And then I extend that. And that's what these notes really are, is they're extended. So like Laura's working on a customer ship might have been the short form, and then like I just built on that. Now the extended draft, the zero draft is where I now start building out the beats or the rhythm of these scenes, okay? And I would know you don't do that. All right. All right, working on the ship from last night, and the customer comes in. Laura talks. Now, actually, I would do this. This would be a new beat. So this would set it up. So Laura is probably, when Laura is working on the ship from last night. Okay, and the customer of that ship comes in. Remember, you want to have specifics on connecting things, but you don't need to have specific, like I don't need to know what kind of ship it is right now. I don't need to know what kind of customer this is right now. I just need to know they're a customer, and I need to know that they're attached to the ship that Laura is indeed working on. That's the specifics you need, but that is technically broad in general. Now I created a new beat. So this is the first beat I'm going to set up. Of course, you're allowed to add other beats while you're writing the prose and working on your first draft. This is just for the zero draft. And this creates a new rhythm or a new movement. When I get into the writing of the prose, we're going to get into logical narrative movement more. We're going to get into movements. All right. So like what dictates the movement, et cetera, et cetera. It's when there's a break. The simple version is when there's a break or a change in position. So if Laura is working on the ship and a customer comes in, that is a beat. Now Laura is going to talk with them about the ship, what it needs, and how much. That is a new movement because there's a change in what was before it. The customer is not happy would be an indent because that'll be about part of this with the price and how long it's going to take. This changes the beat to now it's the reason the movement changes is because now it's not about the ship. It's going to be about Laura being from Planet X. Okay. It turns out I don't want them working on my ship, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then now the movement change or the new beat I need is the boss intervenes and says they'll handle it from here. The customer doesn't understand why they would hire someone from the planet. And then, but sorry about that. But the planets have been at peace for 2 years, and maybe we should be trying to honor that peace. Okay. All right. So that's how we create the first beats. So now we got to expand on those beats. So what do I want to do here? Maybe, okay, well, maybe. Music is blasting and the light, and the main garage door is open. The street is active with people. And the boss is walking around the space, talking with another customer. Okay, so basically what I did was I expanded that beat to include setting up the scene. We now have context to what's happening in the scene, what the boss is doing. We know the boss is there, so we're seeding that and setting that up so the boss can intervene instead of just showing up. We're creating a position or a starting point for Laura. She is working on the ship. All right. I could even do this technically. No. This would be because this is one move. This is what Laura would be noticing and we'd be setting up. But more importantly, now I know that I'm going to have to create a shot for that. Now remember, screenwriting background. I want to see a shot. Like, what is the camera looking at? These are things that are important when I'm working on the zero draft. As I'm trying to frame it into what we're seeing as an audience through the lens of Laura's mind or POV. All right. Okay. Let's see. Now, what that does, it makes me take this and I create a new beat. So, this sets it up. This adds context for me as like how I'm going to build on the scene. And then this is the resolution of that setup. So, this is setup. The conflict of the middle of the setup is ultimately like what is happening, what is the tension or the buildup. We know things are going on. We know the gate's open. All right. Then the customer of that ship comes in. All right. Laura gets down from the ship and speaks with the customer about their ship, what it needs, and how much. The customer is not happy with the price and how long it's taking. Customer is also walking around the ship. Laura is following them and justifying everything the customer is pointing out. All right, then we're going to expand on this. Hey, arg, what is up? All right, so we're going to expand on this a little bit. What is it they're pointing out, right? So the customer is pointing out dents, marks, and inconsistencies in the body of the ship. Okay. Laura says that they were there when they brought in the ship. Oh, look, AI. M-AI. All right. I'm going to argue and fight for the M- to come back to us authors in the history of authorship. All right. Laura says that they were there. When the customer, see, we want to be specific for get rid of the ambiguousness of it. Brought in the ship. Brought in for that stuff. Okay. All right, now we get to jump into. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Watch this. Frustrated. Laura removes her helmet and pulls down the welding guard around her neck and head. All right, there we go. All right. Customer stops. All right. Aren't you XYZ from? All right. So this is a species from Planet X. What am I gonna say? Name that planet. Okay. All right. That's good stuff. This is what it is. This is what zero drafting is, right? We keep it loose, we keep it nice, but at the same time, I'm just checking for spelling. See spelling? At the same time, when we're doing the zero draft, we don't want to give ourselves too much pressure. Again, it's really just about keeping it flowing and moving and seeing I now know that I'm going to have to write out this beat. I know that I'm going to have to write prose for this. I know that I'm going to have to write prose for this, right? So every dot or whatever, every beat, every thing I write is going to be expanded in prose. It might be one pro, it might be two pros, it might be three pros, it might even be a line or a sentence. There's a part in a book that I wrote a long time ago, where ultimately something happens, and there's this violence, and then it just says, then there's just one word for the next prose, and it just says dead. And then now it moves into another thing. And that dead is so powerful and impactful as one word, as its own thing, that it creates a rhythm and breathing room for that, right? So controlling the pace. So sometimes, this whole thing might just be one quick sentence, one quick word, maybe 2 words, 3 words. But the point is, I know that every line that I create on this document is going to have to be expanded somehow, some way. I don't know why, but when I do my zero draft, I somehow like to explain everything. Is that okay to do? 100%. Yeah, Hannah Hart, that's you. Whatever works for you, do it. The thing that you should be looking for in a zero draft, no matter what your system is basically the numbers. Like, if you're explaining everything, is that bloating your time spent on that chapter or moment? Is it confusing that moment or that chapter? Is it needed for that moment or that chapter, right? So, like, you just have to justify its purpose, and then it'll allow it to be okay. I'll be honest, like, this might be the first round of zero draft, and then when I get to the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take notes on the zero draft, and I'm going to go back, and we're going to add more information. That'll expand the zero draft. I still won't be in the first draft, right? And you could do that as many times as you want, but there has to be a point where you need to make the choice to say, I need to move forward on this. So that is an important element of it. It's okay to linger on things. It's okay to but again, there's a world building fatigue. Like, you don't want to get into like every nook and cranny of like a tree's history and its growth, and like, what is its lineage among the forest, and how often, what does it look like in the summers. Like, there is a certain point where the information becomes frivolous and it's fluff, because when you're writing your first draft, second draft, third draft, like when you're really getting into the prose, that's where you want the freedom to be like, what can I expand on this? How can I expand this to explain this tree more? What are the colors of this tree? Because if you worry about that now in the beginning, it takes away a little bit of like the what do I need later, because you might start going, well, everything is blue, this thing is blue, so it has to be blue. Whereas if you allow the story part to develop the movement of the narrative itself, that's where you could start saying, you know what, the trees blossom in summer because in my head I want the story to play around with the blossoming of the summer, or you know what, in the winter they blossom, whatever the case is. So that's why I like broad general statements, and I like keeping things specific enough to understand what's going on, but not too specific where I can't play with it when I'm writing out the prose. But to answer your question, you can do that. All right. All right. I don't need this opener. I don't want you working on my ship. You're trying to screw me because your people lost the war of 476DR. Okay. Now, clearly, this customer's a douche. Where are we at? We're doing pretty good. 7 more minutes. If you haven't voted on the poll, feel free to. The poll is, what's your biggest writing struggle? We will go over the poll at the end of the hour, which will be where I am, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. All right. Okay. The boss okay. I'm gonna add a little bit here. The customer is getting loud and defensive, and Laura is trying to calm them down. Her voice. Oh. The customer's voice is so loud that people outside the shop on the streets are reacting to this, and Laura is well aware that she doesn't need the extra attention. Okay, so here's something as a learning tool. The people outside the streets, we set that up over here. The street is active. The music is blasting and the main garage door is open. The streets are active and people are walking, etc., etc. So we set up that element to do what? Challenge it in the midpoint of the scene. The next thing I have to do, though, is the music is blasting. Now from the ship, lowering the music and speaks. Okay, gotta add that little something. See that? See, we learn, and we evolve, and we change things up as needed. All right, the boss intervenes, telling the customer that he'll handle the ship from here. The customer doesn't understand why they would hire someone from an enemy planet. But the planet, okay. The boss tells the customer that the planets have been at peace for 2 years, and maybe we should try honoring that peace. All right, there you go. All right, there we go. I think we just did the opening scene. And now, all right. Okay. What is that? $2.95. Boop. Okay. Oh, we're gonna need 2 things. All right, so let's do this. Boop. All right, so working on the ships, and then we'll do authorities. Authorities. You might be asking, Tom, what are the numbers? The numbers just mean how many scenes there are. All right. Damn. I forgot the number. Boop. $2.95. All right. Whoops. $2.95. All right. Okay. Do. What we got? Ooh, question. What do I do when my narrator sneezes on accident? Well, if they're hiding, it's going to cause tension and urgency. I think you're making a joke, and it's a very funny joke. But just in case you're not making a joke and you're actually asking an honest, sincere question, I would just need a little bit of clarification with that. What do you mean, the narrator? Are you talking about audiobooks? Are you talking that the narrator within the book, who, because it's omniscient, sneezes while telling the story in the book? By the way, if you are joking, I think we are creating something intriguingly interesting, and I recommend almost pursuing it, because now that I'm thinking about it, that is hysterical. Where like the narrator omnisciently is telling the story, and they sneeze while telling the story, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I'm walking around in my garden, I'm telling the story. Where was I? Oh, yes. It's actually really funny. Thank you for that. All right, let's do it now. All right, okay. Showing up to the shop. Laura. She's doing. Now, again, here's an example of being vague but informative for myself. I don't have to go into specifics. Stops what she's doing. We don't really need to know what she's doing. I don't think it'll be important to the narrative, but she will be doing something, and that's what I could explore when I get closer to when I'm doing the immersion and the first draft, my official first draft. All right. Asking to see. All right, the authorities are asking to see. When asked why the boss, the authorities. Say that the same alien, kind of alien, is part of an investigation. Oh, yes. Kind of like Princess Bride. Yes. Yeah, just like that. That would, yes. By the way, I was speaking of the Princess Bride. There was somebody that came up with a really good idea of like, where they're like, you could remake Princess Bride and not dishonor the quality and love of the original, because they were like, just have Fred Savage come back as like an adult, right? And they are either telling their kid who's sick the story, but now you can change it because the kid is different, so what they're seeing in their head is going to be different, and then how Savage tells the story is also going to be different, and they could have their own whatchamacallits, commentary on it, and that would allow you to do basically a part 2, so it's not necessarily a continuation of the story, The Princess Bride, but it's a continuation of the story of the family and the kid. And when someone said that, I was like, you know what? I would accept that. I would not be uncomfortable, because like they could do anything now. They could do whatever they want. Like they could change the format, or whatever, because it's just, again, this person telling the story to their kid or their grand. Fred Savage could technically have a grandkid, but I doubt they'd be old enough. Anyway. All right, the authorities notice her watching them and head after her as Laura Olivia takes. Oh, there we go. Boom. I think we just finished. All right, and that's the resolution. So just real quick. This is the setup. So by the way, every narrative has a beginning, middle, and end. Every act has a beginning, middle, and end. And every narrative has 3 acts, a beginning, a middle, and end. Every act has 3 sections, a beginning, a middle, and end, right? Because of the 27 plot point outline. Every section has 3 plot points, a beginning, a middle, and end, okay? Therefore, 9 plot points per act, 27 plot points per narrative. But every chapter has a beginning, middle, and end. So you need to set up a context, you need to challenge and reframe that context, and then you need to resolve it. And then every scene should also technically have a beginning, a middle, and end. So even though this chapter is made up of 2 scenes, this scene has a beginning, a middle, and end, and this scene has a beginning, a middle, and end. Even though it's very short, it exists. But together, this chapter makes a beginning, a middle, and end. I know that sounds complicated, but that's why we do the zero draft, so we don't have to write out 3,000 words or 8 pages of prose and immersion and pretty writing, and then realize, oh wait, I haven't resolved this yet, or I've been lingering in the introduction, the context too long, right? But the zero draft lets you see the beats move out, and we go, oh, all right, so I set it up, and now this is ultimately the conflict, and then this is the resolution of the first scene. But the setup technically to the whole chapter is this, and then actually I would say the setup of the chapter is this, and then the conflict of the chapter is this, and then the resolution is that she takes off. And that's the way you got to look at your chapters, your scenes, your narratives, your acts, your sections, the plot points. You have to always have enough context to challenge and reframe it, and then resolve it. And that's just, if you create that rhythm, you'll be moving the narrative forward consistently. The readers will feel like stuff is happening because things are happening, because there are choices being made, there are consequences, there are reactions, reflections. The tension element is being cut off with the resolution to allow us to breathe and have a moment. And then you create a new context, which creates something that you can challenge and reframe, which develops new tension or stakes or urgency. And then you want to resolve that, and that's the formula of narration. All right, so we did chapter 8. I'm pretty excited about that. Look at that. Let me just 69. 69. I'm an adult. All right, there we go. Let's see. This chapter might be 1,000 words. You might be saying, but Thomas, shouldn't chapters be longer? No, chapters need to be as long as they need to be. They have to be long enough to set up the context, going back to that. They have to be long enough to challenge the context enough, and then they have to be long enough to resolve what is there while moving the narrative forward. So we did good today. An hour long. We finished chapter 7.2, and we did chapter 8. That means next week we will officially be on chapter 9, which is the last chapter in Act 1. All right, that's pretty sexy. All right, let's get to the board. I really need to have more time to focus on all this. Although I'm hearing it all, I am missing a lot of visual aspects. So, looking forward to the class because of this. Oh, yeah. This is stuff we will tackle in the class. But more importantly, the class will be the students present me with what they're doing and working on, and I could give a class on that. But also I can give advice and help on that. I am excited about the class, but again, I'm trying to try to get it to at least 5 students that are interested before I start the class, just so because more people would help sort of with the movement of the class, and we'll see that everybody sort of like has the same issues, frettings. Oh, greetings. What's up, good sir, Mr. Afghani? If you haven't done so already, there is a poll. We are going to discuss the poll. The poll is, feel free to vote. You still got some time to vote. What's your biggest writing struggle? I don't know. Number 1, plotting ideas, 36%. Staying motivated, 36%. Finding time, 27%, and writer's block, 0%. All right. Let's do some questions and talk to the audience a little bit, and then we'll just to give people some time to vote if they haven't voted already. If you have questions about what we did today, outlining, if you have questions about your writing or you need help on something, if there's anything in general, feel free to ask the questions. I'm a developmental editor and a writing teacher, so I always give the floor to the audience after the first hour of doing the thing, and we spend this time kind of sort of talking, happening. What about getting distracted with other ideas? Whoa, that's good. That's good. All right, so I was just talking to someone about this last night. Okay, so when it comes to being distracted by other ideas, you got to remember you are in control of what you choose to pay attention to. Now, I do fall into the category of being distracted by the TikTok, by the Instagram, by the social media, by the evil that is a phone. And I realize, oh man, I have to get back to my writing, or I have to get back to networking, I have to get back to my job responsibilities that make me have an author career and do what I do, right? And I say that because I need to do certain things to maintain a career, right? So what about getting distracted with other ideas? What I would do, and this is important, is sometimes it's okay to sort of step back, take those ideas, and then just sort of like brainstorm it onto a page, sort of like filter it on. I have many folders and many files where it's just story ideas that are basically just whatever it is that's like eating at me or pushing on me or just the concept. And once I get it out, then I say to myself, all right, I'm going to let that breathe and I'm going to come back to it, but I'm going to go back to what I was working on. Now, does that mean you can't work on it? No. Sometimes that idea will lead me to outline, just a short form outline where I won't go too hard into what we're doing right now. It's just, I will just have the movement of it. And I also have like a note sheet where I just put down certain notes, character ideas, whatever. But you still have to organize and set up your time blocks. For me, like I said, I try to do a 2-hour time block of writing. Whatever I do in that 2 hours is what I do. Sometimes I'll do a half hour on one book that I'm working on, a half hour on another book, a half hour on another book. Maybe I do an hour and then 2 half hours on another book, but it's 2 hours. I do focus writing. Now, I could do an hour in the midday and I could do an hour at night, whatever the case is, or I could do 2 hours in a row. The point is, once that alarm clock goes off and it goes beep, 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 I stop what I'm doing and I move on to the next task. So I try to allow myself to be in control of things and not allow things to control me. So that's my advice on that. Passive voice and dialogue. Would you leave it as it is, because someone is speaking, as in I can hear my character saying that? The rule with dialogue is there's no such thing as grammar. Whatever you got to do, let it happen when it comes to characters. Active voice is really for the action beats or the prose themselves. It's you want to stay with the active. However, you can also interject passive for stylistic reasons, or it has to have a purpose. It has to the best way to say it is, is it doing something? When it comes to dialogue, though, no. Dialogue is somebody choosing to say something, and they might go, do or do not. There is no try. Right? And you're like, well, that's grammatically incorrect and weird. Or, sitting here, you do, is passive. Young too much is this one. All right. So yeah, passive voice and dialogue, let it be. The only thing I would recommend is make sure that the dialogue is doing one or more of these three things: plot forward, character development, or world building. Could do one or more of those things. And it is obviously through the POV of a character, which it would be. Other than that, have at it. Staying motivated. I put on another thing coming. All right, you got another thing, and that keeps me writing. When it comes to being motivated, staying motivated. I think what's really important about staying motivated is listening to when you need a rest. Honestly, sometimes we overwhelm ourselves with too much pressure. Like, oh, I have to get 1,000 words out, or I have to get, which is, by the way, crazy. If you could get 200-300 words out in a day, once a week, you're doing more, okay? More than people that wish they could write, who want to write, all right? So don't pressure yourself with that. But it is good to listen to that. I think I need a break. I think I need to stop. I think I need to go eat dinner with my family. I think I need to take a walk. The motivation to stay motivated is to keep yourself from being overwhelmed. Really, that's the trick. And that's another reason, going back to the time blocks, I started really embracing the time blocks. Like, I'll give myself 30 minutes on social media to do like whatever I got to do, make posts. Sometimes I won't even do posts. I'll take that 30 minutes to write out future posts, and I'll just create basically what is my next month of posts going to be. All right. And maybe Monday's 30 minutes will be me writing out ideas. Tuesday's 30 minutes will be me cleaning up those ideas. And Wednesday's 30 minutes might be me going through and saying, which ideas do I really like? Which ones do I don't like? Thursdays would be scheduling them. Friday might be maybe doing Thursday might be doing photos for them. And then Friday, whatever the case is. But that allows me to stay motivated because I'm not overdoing certain things. So I'll network for 30 minutes, and then maybe I'll do emails for 30 minutes, and then maybe I'll do some marketing for 30 minutes. Then I'll do some networking for 30 minutes. Whatever the case is, then I'll eat. Remember to eat. Remember to give yourself rest. It's those things that sort of put you on a schedule that keep you motivated. It's like going to a job. Like when you go to work, you're not motivated to work other than you're going to get a paycheck, you're going to be rewarded. So like you're pushing through it. So like what I say to people is like, if you're willing to sacrifice for a job you hate, find reasons to sacrifice for something you love. That's ultimately the truth at the end of the day. I hope that helped. That's me all the time. It's just ideas after ideas. It happens. And you got to let those ideas flow. Is it possible? It's always possible. Is it possible to structure a book like a TV show? If not, can it be done across multiple books? The answer is yes. Yes, it can be. There's a few ways you could do it. We are currently, and I say we, me and my team, we are currently, we're taking a TV show that was in talks with studios, and because of, we've talked about this before, many years ago when we were doing, I got cancer, blah, blah, blah. All right, and plus COVID, okay, so all these crazy things happened. So a lot of the things got taken off the table. However, what we're doing is we're taking the seasons. This is one way you could do it. You could take the season of a show and turn that into one book. That would be a stronger way to approach it because you'll at least get a full narrative, and then book 2 could be season 2, blah, 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 blah. Now, there's another thing you can do with this. Believe it or not, there are books that are written like this. You can write the screenplay, and then you could print it and format it into book form. I have this for Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption is a book, and you read it like a screenplay because it's written as a screenplay. So you have that choice too. I probably would not recommend writing like a book as an episode, only because I don't think enough happens in a full episode when you're talking about TV. for it to be compelling. However, a novella or a short story, that in itself would dictate an episode. So now we're finding a solution. So maybe that would be a good alternative. Instead of writing a long form novel per episode, think of it as short stories, or maybe even a novella. So that might be something. I hope that helped. Like 100. Yeah. So the show, we have 2 shows. We had 21-3 and The Circle, and each one. This is the rule. By the way, if anyone's from the screenwriting world, if you are working on televisions and you're going to pitch an idea to a studio, they want a minimum of 5 seasons. Not that the show will be 5 seasons or that it can't change over the course of those 5 seasons. They want to know that your show is strong beyond 1 season. Now, does that mean you have to write all the scripts? No. You don't even have to write 1 script. But the treatment needs, and the pitch deck needs to represent the movement of 5 seasons. So that's interesting that you said like 5 seasons max. So with 21-3 and also The Circle, which we are working on as a series as well, a book series, you would make basically 5 books out of it. So that's a great, perfect. But anyway, I give some inside knowledge to the industry. I'm glad that information helped you, Flowers, with the dialogue. All right, I think my motivation issue is kind of like Afghani said, getting distracted by something else creative I'd like to do. I'm one of those kinds of people, gets all wrapped up in a task and will not eat, drink. ADHD. Welcome to the party, right? I get it. I'm there. It comes down to habits. Something that really changed the way I approached my writing career in screenwriting and also as an author. And by the way, as a musician, I used to spend days just writing music. And we used to spend Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday rehearsing for like 2 hours at a time. And the only reason is because Dream Theater used to do that. So we were like, if we do that, we were kids though, you know. But my point is, when I started getting around more professional people and my mentors, I started finding my mentors and linking up with them. Am I hip or what? When I started getting together with them and started helping them and volunteering my time to do what I can for these people, I learned very quickly that we have to say no to things and yes to other things. And we have to learn to control our impulses. And that, is it okay if we fall back and like kind of like deep dive for a day or two? There's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, remember, going back to, we sacrifice for a thing we hate, a job we hate. So why not sacrifice for a passion we love, right? And my mentors used to say, look, you have responsibilities. If you're hired to write a song, a script, or a book, or whatever, or developmental ed or something, you have a time frame. And if that final day is not reached, you get some demotions, right? You get some, your credits get hit. All right. So it's your job to say, all right, I got 3 weeks to get in the first draft, or 3 weeks to get. I'm talking about a screenplay. So that is more logistically possible than a book. If I'm writing a song and they're like, look, we need just the foundation of the song written, by the end of the week. Like, I have to say to myself, how am I going to break up my days to get there? Because I have other responsibilities. So I can't just focus on this thing. And 6 to 8 hours on one thing will not get you as much quality as, say, 4 or 5 days of 2-hour blocks. All right, because you're rested, you're involved, you're giving yourself a chance to breathe. That changed my whole perspective on not only the creative element, but also the business element. And that, hey, look, I have responsibilities that go beyond the creative, the business brain and the artist brain. The artist brain does what it does creatively and doesn't let the business brain touch it. But the business brain has to do what the business has to do without touching the artist stuff. They're 2 separate brains, 2 separate worlds. Have at the art. Let it be written and created and designed for you and what you want to do, the stories you care about. But then when you're done, take the business brain and figure out, how do I push this, market this, and run my business. And running your business, you got to network, market, practice. You got to do it. This book right here. That explains. That's the first part that's going to explain a lot of this. And then, of course, there's other books in the series that will explain it. But that's my point. When it comes to motivation and getting distracted, you have to make choices. You have to decide to yourself, listen, I cannot allow myself to get sucked into this world for 8 hours a day. But you can do an hour 5 days a week, right? So Monday through Friday, do 1 hour, whatever. But if you have multiple projects, sometimes it's okay to give yourself a deadline. But again, real quick, this will be the last thing I had to say on it. If you're not, quote unquote, doing it full time, or, you have publishers or agents, or you yourself aren't running your author career like a business, you got a lot more leeway, But at some point, you have to say to yourself, am I a hobbyist, or am I somebody who wants to make this a career? And the moment you want to make money doing something, you can't open a donut shop, is what I'm saying, and then just sort of kind of focus on cooking the best donut, but never opening up the shop, if that makes sense. I hope that helps. Etc. Because I get too involved in... Oh, yeah. Yes. You are welcome. I hope that also helps with that. All right. So let's get to the poll. The poll says here, boom. All right. We got a tie. Not a tie that you wear around your neck, but plotting ideas, and staying motivated. We already discussed staying motivated. So let's talk about plotting ideas. What is the biggest struggle with plotting ideas? I'm going to give you a secret insight into plotting ideas. Let's see. Let me get the screen ready for you. You ready? This is the secret to plotting ideas. All right. I want anybody right now in the comments section, okay? I want you to give me one sentence idea. Give me a sentence idea. Just give me a sentence idea, and I'm going to show you how to plot that, and then I'm going to plot that idea out. I keep distraction and temptation at bay by writing an A4 pad with a fountain. A4 pad. Is that thing? Is that thing that's like it's like a tablet A4, right? But it's like it writes everything in, or am I don't know. Oh, pad. Yeah, pad. Oh, you're just talking about the white pad. Oh, that's good too. Yeah. That's old fashioned. That's the old fashioned way. Yeah. And that's really that's the old style. Quentin Tarantino does that. He actually writes his scripts longhand. Believe it or not, he does not type out. He has someone else type out his longhand. So, what we got here? A boy walks into. Well, we'll write both of them. A boy walks. Let's see. Boy walks into the woods and sees a wolf. Ah! And then the other one is a village of dragons hires a human hunter. Interesting already. To deal with a human that's been terrorizing their village. A village of dragons. Okay. A village of dragons hires a human hunter to do. Excellent. All right, let's make sure I have everything spelled correctly before we get into this. All right. Okay, so let's say. Let's say a village of dragons hires a human. Okay. With the wolf. A human hunter. Okay, with the wolf. To deal with a human that's been terrorizing the village. All right, so how do we come up with ideas, plotting ideas? Well, the first thing is, remember, you got to follow the rules. So if we look at the 27 plot point outline, right, we have to follow the rules. This says I must... Oh, I like this idea already. I mean, listen, wolves, dragons, hunters, I'm in. All right. So we know that. Oh, let me make this bigger so you can all see this. And also, let me know if you can see the screen of words. If you can't, I'll try to make it bigger. But I don't want to make it too big because then like it gets lost on the thing. So according to the 27 plot point, the first 3 plot points need to do what? We need to set up the ordinary world. We need to disrupt that ordinary world. And then we need to have a reaction or a fallout to that ordinary world, right? Excellent. I'm glad. Thank you for letting me know. So with that said, I need to just take this idea, this log line, if you will, and I have to say to myself, how do I establish the ordinary world? Well, a village of dragons hires a human hunter with a wolf to deal with a human that's been terrorizing the village. So I have to say to myself, do I want to set this narrative before the village is terrorized and the dragons who live in that village have to hire the hunter? Right? Is the story going to be in the POV of the dragon? Is the story going to be in the POV of the human? I would automatically recommend the human in this situation, even though the dragons would be amazing. All right, but why? Because the human being hired to deal with the human terrorizing the village becomes the inciting incident. So now I'm already putting together things based on this. So what do I have to do? I can now say to myself, do I want to start the ordinary world with the human hunter, living with his wolf in the woods, roaming around, whatever. And then maybe they walk into the village of dragons and they see that there's some commotion going on, and the dragons are like, I can't be dealing with this. And they're like, we've been terrorized by this human for so long, we don't know what to do. And then the human's like, well, maybe I can help you. And they're like, who are you? And they're like, another human. They're like, no, I'm blah, 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 blah. Right? So I'm already thinking it out. So let's figure out the ordinary world. So we come up with plot point 1, which will ultimately be a human hunter moved around the forest with their faithful wolf. Wolf row. All right. Okay. They've been traveling for several months, coming from another region that was one stop on their mission to see the world and experience different cultures, people, and especially foods. Okay. All right. So now we just set up the ordinary world. All right. And of course, we want to make sure that I spelled everything right. Do this, which I did. Okay. All right. So there we go. We just set up the ordinary world. How did I do that? Well, remember, I thought about this premise, and I had to figure out who would be the most interesting POV. Clearly the human, because, and this is why, they would have the most agency in this premise. The dragons are reactive to the human that is terrorizing their village. They have to hire, which according to the story, they hire someone, in this case the human hunter with a wolf, to help them with the humans. Therefore, the dragon's agency begins and ends with them hiring a human because they themselves cannot deal with the human that is terrorizing their village. So right off the bat, the premise is telling me that the human hunter is the POV because they have the most agency. So then I have to set up a couple of things in the ordinary world. Their motivations. Dragons pay the most. All right, they are the best. And they don't drag on with it. They're not like, well, I'll pay you next week. No, they pay right away. So I have to set up the character, their motivations, their positions, right? And sort of like their background a little bit. And we did it. A human hunter moves a human hunter. Actually, I could just do this. A human hunter traveling through a forest. So that's also setting up the opening scene. A human hunter traveling through a forest with their faithful wolf, Row. Okay. Nice pun. You're welcome. I like it. Okay, now here, they've been traveling for several months. This is setting up who they are. Coming from another region that was one stop on their mission to see the world and experience different cultures, people, and especially foods. Now, This means right here, this is an excellent opener to the ordinary world, different cultures. That means this character can now have on their person different cultural elements of the world that they either collected by being gifted it through their relationship building, right? They could use different words from around wherever they've been, different regions, which gives them character and pizzazz. And we did this, I came up with this just from that premise alone. But now I'm trying to create behavioral choices. Who is this character, right? And then meeting people. So we know they're friendly. We know they're open. We know they're inquisitive. We know they're not a brooder, right? But also foods. What brings people together? Food. Everyone needs to eat. And we break bread together. We are learning a lot about this character in the ordinary world before we get into it. All right. And they're great to have around. They are very good. The dragons, you mean, are good to have at a barbecue. Because they just, you don't need coal. You just, you know. Suddenly, it feels like we're playing D&D together. It does, right? We are definitely playing D&D together. All right, let's keep it going. All right, the inciting incident. We've already talked about this, which is they are hired. So the human hunter entered a large town, a city. The buildings were designed into the side of mountains. And the architecture had... This is also the inciting incident because they are entering a new city, etc., etc. That is going to be very specifically done. And the architecture had been built for what could have been giants. They make it to the center of the city and discover a gathering of, let's say, 10 dragons. Okay, because, you know, anything more than that, they'd be like, we could have killed this person ourselves. Gathering of 10 dragons, all yelling about being terrorized by a human. We're going to add some more. Leading a small army to kill and take our scales for armor, our meat for market, and our peace for their glory. All right. Doing so, and by the way, I could do this too. I could go a little deeper if I wanted to, right? But let's keep it into one paragraph. The dragons notice the hunter and get scared and angry that a human entered their city. Oh, look, AI. Okay. The hunter, with their charisma and personality, convince the dragons to tell them what's going on, and they ultimately hire him to handle this human and their army. Okay, there you go. That's the inciting incident. All right. Actually, let's do this. Let's do this. No, that's good. All right, so I don't know how you just did that, but you're giving me an idea for PP22. PP. I was about to close Word down, but I've nipped it into the outline, and excellent. I'm glad. All right, so now, according to this, the protagonist reacts to the inciting incident. I was about to change something, but I wanted to sort of like work through it with you so you could see how I develop ideas quickly. All right, it has to be a reaction to the inciting incident, okay? Awesome flowers, he's inspiring me, just hearing the idea he's coming up with. I need more acquaintances like Tommaso. All right, So there needs to be a fallout. What I would do is this. Very cool flower. Hey, Emma's watching from the sideline. She's hiding. She's hiding. Yes, I could do with a standby Thomas. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right, so back to this. I'm just gonna do this third, and then we're gonna move on. But I'm just showing you like how I use the outline itself to basically dictate where I'm going. And as with this, I ultimately came up with the idea. But let's have a reaction to the inciting incident, which is, let's take this out of here, okay? All right, and we're going to just put this here for now. And why am I doing that? I'll tell you in a second. Stand by 10. Mark me down. Hey, you know, Rain, I have a online class that we're starting to we're trying to get 5 people involved. So feel free, if you're interested, you know, send me information and we'll get you signed up for it. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Where is it? Where is it? Here you go, buddy. Just go there. You'll see a form on the click here for it's. You don't have to sign up for anything. It just you just let me know that you're interested, and then, you know, once I have 5 people, then I'll start it. And AI Thomas, you know, we see it everywhere. We might have to disguise him as more or less not great. I agree. I agree. All right, so let's get into it. The reason I'm taking out they hire the hunter is because I realize I can expand and breathe within the experience of this. So the hunter enters a large city. That is a mixture, the start of the inciting incident. They make it to the center and they see people, the dragons, discussing it. That is the conflict. And then the dragons notice the hunter enter the city and chase them down. So now the reaction to it is the hunter is running for their life, trying to survive the attack. Okay. Now, we are not going to... Now, number 4, where it's the long-term impact. So, just for anyone who doesn't know, let me put that up there. Just for anyone who doesn't know. Plot point 4 is going to be long-term reflections and reactions. So that's... but plot point 5 is where they take action, which will be where the hunter actually is hired and says, I'll do this. Was this? I've got an Uncle Thomas, but he's not that funny. I have a son called Thomas. You know, Thomas is a good name. I just, you know, I think it works out. All right, so I already know that the hunter is going to use their charm and convince the dragons to ultimately hire him, okay? But the hunter is running for their life, trying to survive the attack. By the way, what are we doing here? We're showing the skill level and capability of the hunter. And this is still in section 1, which is setting up the ordinary world. So we're still learning about who the character is through the inciting incident and the reaction to the inciting incident. The hunter makes it to a safe place within the cave and ultimately gets cornered, and the dragons capture them. Oh! Now, instead of allowing the narrative to move smoothly, hey, you guys are having trouble, hire me. We are now using the inciting incident to cause the human to be more, I have to survive this. The dragons take them prisoner, right? So now, in 4, the protagonist reacts on only, all right, in a cell, hanging high above the ground in a large cave, the hunter listens in on the dragons. Okay, this is actually what I'm going to do now. This is how the writing process should work. You should be comfortable going back and changing things. All right, the hunter enters a large land. They make it to the center and discover a gathering of 10 dragons. So I'm not going to have them yelling here. Okay, we're going to actually have that here. Okay. Now, what does this do? This allows things to happen and breathe. We're now breathing through things, and we're vague but informative. So the hunter enters the large city, sees dragons, the dragons notice it, and they get angry, and they chase the human down. Oh, well, of course dragons are going to chase humans down. Dragons eat humans, right? That's what the reader's thinking, okay? But we're obviously going to subvert the expectation by allowing the scene to breathe out, and it is in this plot point, this chapter or chapters, where the hunter is not understanding what's going on. They're in a cell. They're like, what did I do? They're listening to the dragons talking about having been terrorized by humans, a human leading a small army. So now we are getting substance, context, and now we are getting the other side of the story. I would probably do something like have the hunter meet the other human by being rescued from the dragons I would probably do something like have the hunter meet the other human by being rescued from the dragons. I'm sorry. I do have dyslexia. I'm getting tripped up on I think you're saying you would have the hunter meet the other human because the human would rescue the hunter from the dragons. I think that's what you're saying. You can correct me if I'm wrong. The reason I'm doing this is because I want the dragons. I want to play in that. Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying. I would like to also continue to show that maybe the human that is terrorizing the village is perceived as a villain or antagonistic. And that gives us room to grow. So if we keep that meeting till later, we allow the audience to build in the ordinary world that the dragons are being terrorized. But maybe in the twist at the end of Act 1, we do have the human hunter and the other human meet. And now they create the mystery of, well, no, the dragons have been terrorizing us. And then now Act 2 gets to challenge all the information we were gathering, and the reader is who the hunter is. They don't know who to believe. Are the dragons the ones terrorizing, or are the humans the ones terrorizing? And now Act 2 is all... See how I'm like trying to create narrative movement and not necessarily giving everything away in the beginning? It's all about, they are vegetarian dragons. Just making convo. That's where I take. It's good. It's a good idea. I'm just saying like how my brain kind of like tries to like. I want to move away from quick information and allow things to kind of build on itself. That's all. Maybe the descriptions of terrorizing him telling. So I'm the human that's been terrorizing the village. It is fun stuff regardless. But real quick. So that's why I now took away the hiring of the thing, because now I get to put the hunter into a position where ultimately they run for their lives, but they end up getting captured. They're in a cell and they learn that the dragons have been hunted, and the hunter with their charisma personality says ultimately hire him to handle it. Right? Which is number 5, taking actions. Okay? In which the dragons say that say this is a win-win because if the humans kill him, it doesn't hurt us, but if he can do something about them, it might help us, right? So, and I could do this all day, but you're just taking the 27 plot point outline. Holy crap, that's huge. You're taking the 27 plot point outline, and you're ultimately looking at what the purpose of it is, and then you just have to kind of build on the previous beat, as we did here. We built it up, then they have to do something, right? And they go into the village, and then the resolution is they're caught, right? And then you do it again. You're going to set up the context. He's hanging in the cave. They're talking about, like, the village has been being, terrorized. Then the conflict is the hunter's like, you should hire us. I probably would do this. The dragons don't trust the human. Okay? But then the resolution is that the dragons are like, sure, let's do it, because it's the immediate consequence of the action taken by the protagonist. Okay, so the power of the plot line, the plot points of the 27 plot point, is that it's ultimately nudging you and directing you into what is the theme or the purpose of that. And that's how, going back to, where were we? We were trying to, the thing is like plotting ideas. So how do we plot ideas out? You take a premise like we did, a very short premise. This is what, 21 words. And then you have to follow it. You need to develop an ordinary world. You need to disrupt that ordinary world. You need blah, 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 blah. Okay? I hope that helped. I hope that helps everybody. Where are we? Let's see. This is good practice scenarios you're presenting. Yeah. I do this for exercise, by the way. Even when I don't have a narrative or a story, I'll just take a premise and then I just outline it. And the reason I do that is because if I get hired to help develop a project, or I get hired to help outline a project, I have to be able to see this stuff. But like I did with the example, I ended up going back and changing things, moving stuff around. And you have to be comfortable being able to recognize that. You have to be comfortable saying, all right, I can change this. I can move this. It doesn't have to be exactly what I put. And that helps me when I'm just doing this either on a professional level or if I'm doing it just on my own leisure time. Learning to do the plot points well. Yeah, and it takes time. You do have to practice. Gonna pretend he is being chased from dragons. Maybe he's everyone's being chased by dragons. Some people, even Johnny Depp in From Hell, he's chased by the dragon because he does the what is it? Is he doing not morphine? He does opiates, right? Opioid. I don't know, but I've been told you never slow down, you never grow old. That's funny. You can't go home, but you can't stay here. Boop. All right. Do. What we got here? Your friendly neighborhood dragon. Not quite the dragon. Not quite. That's actually good too. That's good. Not quite. All right. I had fun today. I hope everyone else had fun. Let's do all the end stuff for anyone who's new here. If you haven't done so already, please like the video, bloop it up the video. Remember you can share the video, especially with people you want to help learn and elevate. Remember the community is about building camaraderie. But more importantly, if you haven't done so already and you're enjoying my beard and some of my antics, please subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to find me and any of the books I am writing, have written, or am I doing with teaching or anything in general, feel free to go to makearightlefthehere.com. Other than that, today was basically write a book with me from concept to conception. We've basically been writing for 26 hours. Because remember, I'm only writing for 1 hour per week. So 26 hours in, that should give you an idea of how much you can get done just by doing 1 hour. And we did brainstorming. We did, what else did we do? Let's go over it real quick. So in 26 hours, before we go, let's just talk about this. In 26 hours, where's the thing? Oh, in 26 hours, we brainstormed, we wrote out character arcs, we developed a short form outline, which by the way, just for context, this is what a short form outline looks like. It's just like summaries of ideas that go into each plot point. So that's what a short form outline looks like. Then we extended all 27 plot points. And now we are officially on chapter 9 of the Zero Draft. So we are on the last plot point of Act 1 with the Zero Draft. We're flying through this 26 hours. That's not even a full 40-hour week. So, just so you know, if you just stay consistent and you give yourself some time, okay? I've blooped the beard on the way in. Excelente. I think we're creating a new shirt, Bloop the Beard. Let's write that down. Let's write that down so I don't forget. Let's see. Bloop the Beard. All right. I like it. And bleep. that like button. Okay. Bloop the beard and bleep that like button. Maybe just bloop the beard. I like bloop the beard. I think I'm gonna make one of those. I already have like an icon for that. I think we can make something happen with that. All right, everybody. All right. I think that's it. I think we did good. Does anyone have any real quick questions that maybe you had up during the week and you just wanted me to answer? Feel free to let me just jump on that real quick. While you're thinking of that, if you're thinking of it at all, remember this Wednesday coming up, we are going to have a business of writing video. We're going to be talking about copyright and intellectual property. We're going to explain the basics of copyright law, how to protect your work, and common copyright pitfalls. But Friday's video will be the 9th of 10 videos in the creating a language. And then Saturday, I think we're going to be doing a breaking down a scene video. I have to think about that, but most likely that's where we're going to end up being. And then, of course, next Sunday is going to be the live video, as always. Ooh, what do we got? Not doing things this way is what I'm missing. Gonna get on this tomorrow. That makes me excited. Please keep me in the know. I'd love to hear your journey on this adjustment. And remember, these are not definitive rules. You can play with it and adjust it as needed for your own help. But ultimately, these files are also downloadable in the folder. Okay? It's a free folder. Just go to it. When writing a sentence that affects both characters in a conversation, should that be placed between the dialogue, i.e. MC's tone, has influenced MC2's expression? Just for clarification, you're talking about POV, correct? Like, so if two characters are talking, can you shift between both? Like there's a POV of the MC1 is talking and their tone would influence the conversation. I'll say this. If it's omniscient, you could get away with sort of like MC1's tone and then MC2's tone. If it is first person POV, it would be in the POV of the character. So however they're responding to it would be whoever the main POV is. If it is third person limited, it would be from a limited close to the main POV. However, you can frame it in camera movement as long as you do a strong transition. So like characters are allowed to have physical reactions to things, but sometimes it might be better just to stay in the POV of who's living through that moment. However, all rules are meant to be broken, so you can do it with strong transitions. I would almost say that, like for example, if the character it's like, hey, are you really going to sit on the hood of my car like that? You know, and then it's like, the description is Thomas said, moving his hands around like an angry Italian that he is. And then, Chris lays back on the hood laughing. It's now I'm not sitting, sir. I am laying down. Right? Like, so like you can get away with that where it is technically still in the POV of the Thomas character, but the Chris character, whatever, is reacting to it. They have a physical reaction. So you can get away with it. You just have to play around with it. I hope that helped. I think I understood that question. I think I was in it. Have a great day, Thomas. Thanks for everything you shared. Ro, as always, it's a pleasure. I will talk to you soon. Good sir. Is it okay to make 1 to 3 chapters for introducing a new character, even if it's a flashback? All right. It is always okay to do whatever you want. Everything can be done. You just have to do it properly. And, again, don't linger, don't meander. However, to directly answer your question, if you are talking about the plot points, you're allowed to have as many chapters as you want within a plot point. Just follow the rule. Don't meander. Don't add fluff. Don't just linger around. Get to the point. Make sure things are happening. But you need enough context to be challenged and reframed and then resolved in every single plot point. So if you need to set things up in chapter 1, challenge things in chapter 2, and then resolve it in chapter 3 to set up who a character is, that's fine. I will say this much, though. Okay? Use your entire first half of the novel to set up and introduce your character. What does that mean? It means by the end of plot point 3, okay, or the end of section 1, I should say, in Act 1, we should understand who the character is, their motivations, their positions, right? But you now have the rest of the novel up to the midpoint conflict to explore that dynamic truth. And therefore, you're introducing the character over the course of the first half of your book. So if they have a position that they like the Jets, challenge that element throughout the narrative. So you don't have to cram everything into, say, 3 chapters in the beginning. You can set things up in the first 3 chapters, but you can explore and expand on those things through the whole first half of the book. The reason I say first half is because the second half is really about finding a solution to the midpoint conflict, or more importantly, the truth of the lie that was revealed, which therefore creates the reversal. So you really shouldn't be adding new information, because then they have to explore that, they have to figure it out. You should be trying to solve the issue to get to the third act. So that's the thing. As far as flashbacks go, don't use flashbacks to create background information or introduction information. Use flashbacks to move the narrative forward while also building world and character. So if a flashback is designed only to introduce a character and or who they are, you might want to try to create a present tense reflection of that flashback. And what that means is, like, let's say I'm a character and I'm drinking, I'm sitting here and I just had a fight with my brother. Okay? And my brother leaves, like slams the door and is like, we're done. I can't talk to you anymore. So then I go to the refrigerator and I grab a Diet Cherry Pepsi and I crack it open. And I'm looking at the Pepsi. And the Pepsi brings me back to a flashback to my brother coming home going, you need to try this flavor. This flavor is going to change your life. And they hand me Diet Cherry Pepsi. And then in that flashback through that Diet Cherry Pepsi, we're talking and we learn something important. Now we might be learning a little bit more about my brother as a character. Then the flashback ends and I look at the Cherry Pepsi again and then I drink it. And I remember that, there's more to this story than meets the eye. And that creates a stronger flashback than just having a flashback for information. So there's a couple of things I hope I answered through that. Or past tense. I would need a little bit more clarification for the past tense element of your question. Because past tense is just a tense that you would write in. But I'm happy to explore and expand on things if I could just get a little bit more context for that. Bloop the Beard sounds like a role for Johnny. That is totally a role Johnny Depp would take. Oh, good. I'm glad I got it. I'm glad I understood. I understood. I try to understand, but again, we have to ask follow-up questions. Have a good rest of your day, bro. Talking to Ro. I was about to open my laptop when I just forgot that I had my yogurt on top, and I had an oopsie. I forgot my yogurt on. Ah, oh, man. Don't worry. It open. It isn't open. As long as your computer's good. Sorry. I trip up on words, it happens. All right. I'm glad I got some of those great questions. It says here on the leaderboard, Ro, number 1 on the leaderboard with 150 points. Oh, I think 150 is the highest you can get. But then we've got Ro, Flowers, and then Kudry. How do you say that? I'm totally saying that wrong. That's a great name. Kudry. I like the spelling. Kudry. Oh, wait. Kudry. I hope I'm saying that right. That's good. It's not open. Excellent. All right. With that said, I think we're done. We did great today. 2 hours. We got a chapter and the end of. We got chapter 7.2 done. We got chapter 8 done. Boom. We're done. We're moving on to 9 next week. I'll see you during the week, and I'll see you next weekend. Please feel free to email me through my website. Keep in touch. Join me on social media. Join the Facebook group. It's free. And we'll stay in touch. We'll keep in touch. I'm sorry. I'm talking in Italian. That's how my parents used to talk. All right. Arrivederci. Au revoir. Ciao. And all the other words. I'll see you next week. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. And as always, keep developing the right mindset. Talk to you later.